Hi everybody, my name is Anja Kiri. I'm a feminine empowerment coach and I specialise in healing after narcissistic abuse. So today I want to talk about narcissistic relationships. I've done a video on this before but it was erased, so I was guided to do a new one. I'm just going to delve into a little bit of my history and my experience on narcissistic relationships, which actually started very young for me, back as far as when I was 16 years of age. I only realised this when I started doing my healing and saw my own patterns. Being an empath, I had a tendency to attract narcissistic relationships. Narcissists are attracted to empaths because of their kind nature. A narcissist cannot, it's a weird concept. A narcissist cannot physically, or they're not physically capable of loving another human being. But in a way, they can only love themselves. But it's because of their lack of own self-worth that they steal, I suppose, an empath's kind of essence, steals their personality, steals their love, steals their who they are, and feeds off it. Narcissists more or less feeds off of another person's energy and controls another person's energy. This is mad. Like I've had many narcissistic relationships, whether in romance, friendships, and with bosses. And I remember years ago, this is how I'll describe how a narcissist gets high off stealing from an empath or stealing from another person's essence. My boss came into the office after shouting so badly at one of the workers, like so badly. He came in and he looked like he was high on drugs. That's the kind of the feeling a narcissist gets from taking away from another person by shitting on them and from stealing everything about them. And that's the thing, they will pick on you. They will take every part of your personality until you are completely gone. Now, my first narcissistic friendship was back when I was 16. I didn't even realise that was a narcissistic relationship till I started learning about narcissism in my 30s. I won't go back as far as that one, but in my 20s, when I was 20, I started a relationship with a narcissist for almost 8 years. Now, obviously, at the time, I didn't know he was a narcissist, but he literally took away, he was actually 17, he took away everything I was. He was 17 years older than I was. So I was 20, he was 37 at the time, and I disappeared. My whole being and who I was completely disappeared. He made me feel so insecure and so codependent on him. I remember losing all sense of self, all of my personality, all of my essence, all of who I truly was. I lost faith in my abilities, my ambitions, my opinions. If I spoke, like if we were in a group conversation with people and I wanted to get my word in or speak my opinion, he would cut me off or speak over me or say that my opinion didn't matter because I was too young. I eventually just stopped talking. I stopped even trying to speak. I stopped even, when you're rejected so many times, it's hard. Like every time you open your mouth, you're told to shut up. You just get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you're actually gone. I lost all ambition of who I was. He advised me not to work. So I didn't work for those years and I lost all sense of self. Anytime I did go for a job interview and I didn't have much confidence in these job interviews because of how I was because of that relationship, I would come back feeling more and more depleted and rejected and smaller again. I remember even thinking, like, I used to have a brain. I have a brain now. But in my 20s, my brain disappeared. I can look back now and safely say I was stupid in my 20s because he made me feel so inadequate that I felt stupid. I forgot that I could cook. I forgot that I could do DIY. I used to live on my own when I was 19 and I forgot I could do things for myself. He used to do all the driving as well. So, I was a fearful driver because even when I did drive, he'd be shouting at me. Like there was times I'd collect him in the pub when he was drunk. Oh, he was an alcoholic as well. That's another bit that I go into. But anyway, I would go collect him in the pub when he was drunk and I'd be sober. I remember one time he shouting at me in the car park to drive and then drove the other side of the road the whole way home deliberately to frighten me. I thought I was going to die. I was crying the whole way home. This is the kind of mentality these kind of narcissistic people have. I remember losing all complete knowledge that I could cook or you know, do DIY or do anything. Barely remembered how to use a hammer. I remember even slicing or buttering slices of bread and kind of checking, did I do that right? Do you know, asking about everything. Did I do that right? Is that okay? Is that okay? Because, you know, you're afraid. It's like you're walking on eggshells all the time. You're afraid to, in case you do something wrong, in case they snap at you and tell you you're stupid again, or tell you you're oh, they laugh at you as well. I hate that. They if you do something a certain way, they will take the piss out of it, or say, what the fuck are you doing it that way for? That's not the right way to do it. Do you know, or then go to somebody else and say, did you see the way they did that? And that's stupid. Do you know, and make them feel even more small. Do you know, around other people as well. I lost every part of who I was. I lost every sense of who I was. I lost my voice. He turned me into a codependent, childlike being. And you follow him around then like a puppy dog, because you know, you look up to them in a sense. It's like you need them. You're codependent on them for living, because you forget how to live yourself. And like, you know, it took for a very traumatic experience in my late 20s and going to therapy because of that traumatic experience, for the therapist to tell me, you're with a narcissistic partner and that's not a healthy relationship. And I was like, what? No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm used to it. I'm used to this, like. And for the last 2 years of that relationship, we slept in separate rooms. We didn't have sex. We fought all the time. And I thought, because of, I mean, no different for those 7 years, or 6 to 7 years. I thought, this is it. I'm 26, 27 years of age, and this is it for me. I'm destined to live unhappy in this sexless relationship, fighting all the time, him blaming me for the trauma that happened to me, him accusing me of, his words for me, his name for me was fat useless cunt, or he used to call me a slut all the time. All these kind of verbally abusive behaviours. Verbal abuse is terrible for your self-esteem, on top of the fact that they're narcissistic and they're stealing every part of you. Do you know, and we still live together towards the end, and I remember saying something when we were having drinks with friends, and I remember saying something that I used to say before I met him. Do you know, my bold, cheeky kind of old self was starting to come back. And I said it, and he's like, oh, you haven't said anything like that in fucking years. And I just sat there, I was like, I finally realised, that's because I haven't been here for fucking years. I disappeared because you stole all of who I was. And I remember when I finally did move out of that house, I came back to collect stuff, and he's like, where's the Angela I fell in love with? I was like, she's fucking gone. You changed me into somebody else. The girl you fucking loved is not here because I'm fucking back. And I got my voice back again. I fucking found the fact that I was alive again inside after what he took away from me. This is what narcissists do. They steal every sense of who you are and make you disappear completely, until you have no voice anymore, until you have it's like you have no soul anymore. You have no life. They change you into something that they can use as a puppet, someone that they can control. And that is what they do. And they steal your essence, they steal your personality, and they adopt your personality then. Like, I've seen this with friends as well, like, or relationships after that. They steal your personality, and it's like they take a scanned copy and put it on themselves, and then you're like, oh my god, this person is so like me. Jesus, we're going to get on well. And I had another toxic relationship after that, and I just had enough after that one. So those 2 relationships in my 20s, I had enough, and I thought I'd healed. So I took a while before I actually decided I might get into another relationship. And I was dating a guy for 2 months in 2019, and I was like starting to see these red flags again. I'd done some research on narcissism, and I was like, oh my god, I recognize this. Why do I recognize this? And I realized again, oh my God, I'm fucking after attracting another fucking narcissist. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And this all clicked then for me, and I started to do more research on narcissistic relationships. And I realized so many of my past relationships, from friendships, bosses, and romantic relationships, were all narcissistic. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Initially, I had thought, shit, like, you know, men are shit, everything, they're toxic, and that's all there is in the world. I never even saw a good model of loving relationships, and I just believed that these were the kind of men that were in this world. And after thinking I'd healed after the toxic relationships in my 20s, and then attracted another one, I was like, okay, there's something wrong here. It can't just be that the world is full of toxic men. There has to be something to do with me or my patterns. Why am I still attracting narcissistic relationships when I thought I'd healed from these relationships and I'd become independent again? And then I kind of started to see the pattern with my bosses as well. And I was like, oh my God, I'm just after leaving a job because of a narcissistic boss. This is something to do with me. And that's when I discovered inner child healing and understood that even though on the outside I believed that I was okay and I'd healed from these relationships, my inner child was still crying out to be loved because of the trauma I went through as a child. She was crying out to be loved, and she was latching on to anything, any form of attention. And that's the thing when you've got this inner child abandonment wound or this inner child codependent trauma. You anytime a man or a person says something nice to you, you're like, yay, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, yay. And it's like your inner child is just, yes, I'm going to be loved, I'm going to be loved, I'm going to be loved. And they create that validation that they end up attracting narcissistic people, and then they believe we've such a trust in nature, being empaths as well, that we believe that person is good, and that the false mask that a narcissist puts on is fucking the lifetime achievement award should go to these people. And I've realized this with fucking friends as well, and friends who've helped me and been good to me and have changed my life for the better. And then the mask finally drops, and you're like, what the fuck? How did I not see this? Like, how did I not see for the last 7 years or for the last 8 years that this person was like that? Because they put on this perfect mask. They're the best actors in the world. They will steal your personality and start to portray themselves like you, and then they just draw you in, and they play on your kind heart, your trusting heart. And that's the thing. It's between the inner child craving that love and between being an empath as well, and wanting to trust that other people are good, and wanting to trust that people have kind hearts. We're naive in a sense until we heal that wound. And that's what I was. I was naive. I was naive to the fact that, that there was, I couldn't trust these people. I was naive to the fact that what they were saying was real and that they weren't lying to me. And that's the thing. I just, like, for a lot of years, I punished myself for not seeing behind that mask, but it wasn't my fault, and it's not the fault of the empath or the victim in these relationships, because the narcissist is so good at playing that lie until they suck you in and gain control, until they actually have you so tightly in their hold that you worship them in a sense, that you know no different and you love them. And I look back now, I didn't love that, my narcissist, especially that guy of 8 years. I didn't love him, but she did. The girl he turned me into was wholeheartedly in love with him and thought she was going to spend the rest of her life with him. The girl he changed me into did love him. So that's how fucked up it is, because you kind of question yourself. You question, how could you have ever loved somebody like that? But you technically didn't. Your inner child, your childlike, codependent, needy self loved that person. The person that was crying out to feel that love and validation that they didn't get as a child. And as I said, until I started to understand inner child healing, because I didn't even realize this was my inner child until I discovered my patterns. When I discovered the pattern of attracting those narcissistic relationships in all aspects of my life. And it was crazy. When I look back now, just so many, from the age of 16 onwards, there is so many narcissists, female and male, that I have experienced in all aspects of my life. And it was only when I saw that pattern and I started to look within and realised it was my inner child crying out to be loved and that she needed the healing. You might think that you're healed on the outside from these relationships, but your core wounds, your inner child wounds, are not healed until you actually acknowledge they're there. And that's the thing. I spent 30 years of my life thinking that I had no problem with my mother abandoning me as a kid. I believed, look, if you don't know it, you don't understand something, it doesn't matter. If you don't have something, how can you miss it? So I did. I had anxiety and depression. I wondered what was wrong here. I knew that there was something wrong, but I never ever joined the dots. And I never ever joined the dots to the decisions I'd made in my life. And when I did look within and started to understand, I actually understood on an unconscious level, my inner child had blamed herself for 30 years of my life, blamed herself for my mother leaving. I didn't care. I felt on the outside, I don't give a shit. I'm grand. I don't need that. But my inner child unconsciously blamed herself. So because of that, she thought that she wasn't lovable. She thought that she was unworthy. She thought that she wasn't deserving of love. And in essence then, she attracted narcissistic relationships. She attracted unhealthy love because she didn't know what real love felt like, or she was crying out for any kind of attention that she was getting it in the wrong places. And that's the thing, like, she literally, if somebody said hello to her, she was like, oh my God, somebody's going to love me, somebody's going to love me. And like, I didn't know this, as I said, until I started to address my unconscious mind and address my inner child issues. And it was like a wake-up call to understand that all the mistakes I'd made in relationships, all the decisions I'd made throughout my life, were because of my inner child, were because of that core abandonment wound, that codependent wound. And now since I've woke up to the fact that that was my issue, and so actually healing my inner child, my inner wounds, and not just what I thought I was healing on the outside, I stopped attracting narcissistic relationships. I've seen my worth. I don't need external validation anymore. I don't need to seek outside myself for love because I've reparented my inner child, and I've loved her. I love her now the way she deserves to be loved, and therefore I now love myself. And that helps me to attract higher vibrational relationships towards me. And now I can see a narcissist before they walk into the room. The minute I start speaking to a narcissist, no matter what lie they try to shoot out, I like, yeah, not this time. And it's crazy because, like, you know, before I'd known a narcissist for fucking years before I'd see through that mask. And now I see through that mask the minute they open that fucking mouth. Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing with healing the inner child wound. It breaks the patterns. It breaks those relationship patterns. It breaks the toxic patterns that you've been in. It stops you from attracting those kind of relationships again. But most importantly, it helps you to love yourself. It helps you to heal your inner child. It helps you to heal yourself. It helps you to find that love within yourself so that you're not looking outside yourself for it. You know, and this is where you find your independence. And you no longer, like, after the toxic relationships, especially the second one in my 20s, like, he was violent and, like, I didn't want to be with him. But I was so afraid to be alone after becoming so more codependent on him after he got violent, that, like, I was afraid to be on my own. I was afraid that I would never be loved again. So, like, even though we broke up, because I knew that was the right thing to do, and it took me a long time, it took me 3 months after the violent incident before I actually broke up with him. And actually I waited for him to do the breaking up by me distancing myself first, because I was so scared of being alone. We become so codependent and we fear being alone that we will end up staying in those toxic relationships. We'll end up staying in that toxic pattern because we're so afraid to be alone and actually so fearful that no one will ever love us again. Because of our inner child wound, we feel so unworthy of love. So therefore we will settle for those toxic relationships. We will settle for those narcissistic relationships because we think that we don't deserve anymore. And that's the way I used to describe it. My inner child unconsciously made me, I felt so unworthy. I felt like shit. I felt shitty. And then I felt I only deserved shit. I only deserved shitty relationships. I only deserved abuse. And that's the only model I saw of relationships growing up, was unhealthy, toxic violence. That's what I saw. And I thought that this was the norm. And like, you know, I even through alcohol in relationships, I got violent. Do you know, and that's not good either. Do you know, and obviously I was unhappy. And I used to drink too much. Like, I used to get so drunk on alcohol, I'd get angry and violent. But I could drink that same amount of alcohol with friends and be happy, and, you know, but I didn't understand patterns back then. I didn't understand how unhappy I was. I didn't understand how to listen to myself and my core wounds. So, you know, that's why it's so beneficial. Like, you know, and I've said this in videos before, like, people getting into relationships 6 months after a breakup, even a year after a breakup. I think that's crazy. Like, and I used to do the same thing myself. Like, I used to think 4 months after my 8-year narcissistic relationship, yes, like 2 years before we ended, it was over. But 4 months after we officially ended, I ended up in another toxic relationship. Do you know, and that's when I said I'd take a break. And then when I did go back dating, I attracted another narcissist. And I was like, what's going on? I thought I healed. I thought I actually gave myself enough time. So we do need to give ourselves enough time after these relationships to heal our wounds, but we need to understand that we have core wounds as well. It's not just healing the wound of that relationship. It's healing the pattern inside ourselves. It's healing that core reason for us attracting those relationships. So if you have a pattern of toxic relationships, don't blame the external. Don't blame the world. Don't blame the fact that, oh my God, there's only toxic men in this world. There isn't. There is actually kind-hearted, loving men in this world. And actually, that's another thing about us women. We're so used to toxic men that a nice man comes in and we self-sabotage it. It's ridiculous, like, do you know, because that's all we've been used to. This is why it's so fucking important to heal that core wound, to heal the reasoning behind us attracting those relationships. Instead of wondering, you know, understand that there's a pattern here. Understand that it's you, not them. And that's the thing, and that's the hardest thing for me that I understood. But I actually understood it. I was like, look, this is happening again, even though I thought I healed. This means it's a core pattern within myself, a core wound within myself. And I'm so grateful now for this experience of healing, because, you know, I will not settle for anything less. I will not get into a toxic relationship ever again. I would rather stay single and independent and happy in my own skin and healthy, you know, and young and vibrant in my skin than I would getting into the wrong relationship again. But because of my healing, I could smell a narcissist like a fart in a lift by. I can tell when they're fucking lying. I just tell straight away when they start speaking that they're a narcissist. I can feel their energy straight away. So that's why it's so important to heal your core wounds, so that you don't attract another narcissist. And if they come in, you can pass that test and go, not this time. Do you know what I mean? So this is why it's so important to break those patterns, to break those cycles, and to heal and reparent your inner child. It really, really is. You know what? Understand that there's a reason for these patterns happen, these toxic patterns, these toxic relationships. We don't have to settle. Once we nurture our inner child and start to love them and love ourselves, we won't settle for those shitty relationships. We won't settle for that abuse. And it's abuse. We become victims of abuse because of our low self-worth, our low self-esteem. You know, and that's what it is. And we settle because we're afraid no one else will ever love us. That is the biggest fear we have when it comes to codependent relationships. We are so scared of being alone. So scared of no one actually ever loving us if we break up with that person. So we end up staying in these toxic patterns for fear of that. And that's why it's so important to get to such a high vibrational place on your own. Become independent, not codependent. and to find that love within yourself so that you don't need a person. You don't need anyone external. And then when you actually have that healed, you can get into a high vibrational, loving, equal relationship with somebody who will treat you right, and with somebody, you know, that you're not expecting too much of because you're not codependent on them. The two of you will be two independent entities that come together in high vibrational love. Now, isn't that something that is worth fighting for? So stay single for a little bit of time and heal those core wounds. Become independent again. Don't be so in a rush to get into a relationship and needing another person for fulfillment. Find that fulfillment within yourself first. Find that independence and that power within yourself, the empowerment, the self-empowerment within yourself first before you move on. Because the next time you get into a relationship, then it will be healthy and it will be long-lasting and loving and fulfilling and equal and non-abusive. Strive for that. A little bit of time on your own is absolutely so beneficial to become strong enough and independent enough to attract higher vibrational, loving energy that you so truly deserve. So start today. Come on that journey with me today. Book me for a discovery call and I will help you rediscover your love, rediscover your core wounds and your inner child, rediscover yourself, rediscover who you truly are, rediscover your independence, and rediscover what it is like to find true love and within yourself first, and then to attract high vibrational love into your life. So thank you so much for listening today, and I hope this resonates. If it does, please like and share, and we will see you again. Bye bye.